Hello everyone and happy Monday. Now, as we unfortunately know, school has started up again for the school year, and I figured that we should maybe talk about school and school related anxiety. I know that anxiety is a common co-occurring disorder with BPD, and if you have the perfectionist type personality that you put too much pressure on yourself, then you're probably going to benefit a lot from this video. Now, when I'm talking about school-related anxiety, this goes deeper than the classic, like, oh, I don't feel like going to school today. No, this is really about obsessing over doing well, grades, maybe throw in some social anxiety in there. And honestly, university and colleges or school in general is a breeding ground for mental illnesses. So things like anxiety, depression, eating disorders. I'm not blaming those institutions, but they definitely do not make it easy for people who already struggle with mental illness. Now, the American Psychological Association actually conducted multiple surveys and have determined that about 46% of students deal with anxiety. Now, this is the most common mental disorder within university realms, and depression being the second one. And honestly, this makes sense when you look at the objective things that you need to do, the pressure and deadlines of exams, the motto or belief that your entire future is riding on your grades. There's a social dilemma to it, right? How do we balance our social life and relationships and working and school? Yes, it makes sense that burnout is common in students, that there's so many students who are depressed, that there's so many students who experience anxiety. And so we want to learn how to better manage those things so that we don't get to the point of burning out and having to opt out of school entirely. So the first tip is to not put too much pressure on yourself. While I know that this is easier said than done, it is really critical when dealing with anxiety and school. Because if you put too much pressure on yourself, personally, this is something that I used to do. I used to put so much pressure on myself for getting good grades, for performing well. And then after exams, I would always get super sick and crash and burn out and feel really low and depressed afterwards because I was so stressed for weeks on end. And when all that ended, well, then I would get really sick. And it's important to remember that it's not because you have friends or classmates that are able to finish assignments right away that you need to go exactly at their pace. Go at your own pace. I know that it's easy to get caught up in this pressurized bubble that is school, that you need to be a top dog and super aggressive and studying all the time. No, you can go at your own pace. You can inform your university about your specific needs to get accommodations for exams and testing. Know yourself and don't put too much pressure. The second tip would be to put methods in place to make your school day easier. What I mean by this is start off your day with a consistent and relaxing morning routine. I know that you might be tempted to hit snooze and sleep in until you have about 5 minutes left until you need to leave, and then you're rushed out the door and you don't have time to eat. This is a terrible way to start your day. You're already starting full of anxiety, feeling stressed and pressured. Start slowly. For example, for my practicum, I'm the kind of person, I consider myself a morning person. I like to get up early. I like to do my things. I like to be done by like 10:30, 11. I need to have done all my things. And so for my practicum, I actually had the option of deciding what time I wanted to start. In the past, for work, I used to always work 7 to 3. What this ended up doing though is that I was waking up, rushing out the door, having to bike half an hour to work, and getting there just like rushed. I actually did, and I'm very proud of myself, I actually decided to start at 9. I'm gonna do 9 to 5 instead of doing 8 to 4 or 7 to 4, 7 to 3, given that it takes me half an hour to walk to my practicum site. That way I need to leave by 8:30, and that way if I wake up at 6 a.m., which I usually do anyways, that gives me a whopping 2.5 hours to wake up slowly, get ready, have breakfast. I even have time to go to the gym if I want to read. This is a much smoother way to start my day. Yes, I'll be finishing later, but realistically, when I get home, all I'm doing anyways is making dinner and relaxing. So that's fine. So if I can have a bit more ease in my day, this is something that could be really helpful to you. So having a morning routine, practicing mindfulness in the morning, And once you're actually at school, making sure that your friends or your parents or professors or teachers know about your anxiety so that they can help you adapt along the way. Tip number 3 would be to remind yourself that this is not the end of the world. There has been so many things that has happened in my university career that in the moment has felt like this is the worst and I'm never going to come back from this. I failed one of my courses because I decided to do a paper last minute one and only time. I did it the night before. I did not proofread my thing and I forgot to put quotation marks for some of my quotes. I got accused of plagiarism. I failed my course, and all this was happening in the midst of my final exams. Let me tell you that it was a very stressful time, and I'm not saying that obviously I was very valid for being stressed. I think though that I did have the mindset that like this was it. My life was over because of this one thing. Looking back, I can recognize how stressful it was, but it also wasn't the end of the world. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons. So when we're in those moments, being able to recognize thoughts for what they are, they're just thoughts, they're not fact. If they're useful, then we pay attention to them. If they're not, and by not useful, I mean they don't bring us closer to the person we want to be, and they only cause stress, then we let them go. Another tip I have for you is that grades are not everything. This is really difficult because the way that the school system is set up, it's very focused on grades. It's focused on you need to get this to pass, or you need to get a certain average if you want to go do a master's program. While I understand that, I can also tell you from personal experience that when I let go of the idea or the notion that I needed to get certain grades, I actually ended up doing better in the courses. And the reason being is that I was more focused on learning and enjoying the process of taking the course for what it was. I wasn't treating the course anymore as a means to an end, in the sense that I wasn't treating it like I just need to pass this to get this certain grade. No, I'm fully immersed in the process of learning, engaging with the material, engaging with my classmates, with my professors. And when you actually focus on the learning, you appreciate that much more. You actually integrate the material better, and you'll probably end up doing better. So reminding yourself that grades are not everything, and that we actually care about retaining useful things from these courses and taking away more important, bigger lessons, not about getting an A on the final report. And the last thing is balance. Balance, balance, balance. This is super cliche, but it's really important. Why are we so obsessed with filling our calendars with all your class times, and from the break that you have a 3-hour break, and here we're gonna study, and then here we're gonna go work out, and we're gonna do this and that and that? We need balance. Schedule in some me time in your calendar every week. Have a full day if you need to just disconnect from everything. Allow yourself to do the things you really want guilt-free. So if you want to have every Sunday that's your day devoted to yourself, where you wake up when you want to, you spend the day doing things that you like, so going for a walk, reading, spending time with friends, going to the farmer's market, going to museums, watching Netflix all day, schedule in that time, because it's that balance, that you time, that's going to allow you to feel more equipped to better handle stress and anxiety that's going to pop up along the way. I hope that these few tips and tricks were helpful to you while we are now beginning the start of the new school year. And as always, I'm curious to hear from all of you. What are specific things that help you deal with your school-related anxiety? Leave a comment down below. I always read and respond to all of them. They're not only super useful to myself, but other members of our community. On that note, have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.